Good
Good
morning.
morning.
I thought we was going to say it together.
Oh, sorry.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
See what we have to deal with each other. I know. Jenny just said, you late chick. We're on here now, Jenny. So when she gets on here, I can say, now we was on here when she said that. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We hope that y'all are having a good morning. We hope that your week is going good so far. Here we
yeah.
are halfway through the week already. Time goes by so fast. I think that a lot with the kids, like time's just going right by. And here we are almost to the middle of May already, but it don't feel like May. It's still cold outside.
Very
Like
cold
we
outside.
talked about this yesterday, how this is like the first time since I've been alive. I feel like for 36 years. I'll be 36 on my next birthday, but he'll be 39 on his birthday. And like this is the first May that I can remember. We can remember
Ever
that
having
it's
a May.
been like an actual spring. Like I don't know what spring is actually supposed to feel like because like he said yesterday in our conversation, it always goes from cold to hot. Like there's no in between. And like we're actually getting a actual spring and it's cold and it's windy and it feels like it's never going to warm up. But we hope y'all are enjoying this weather. It's so nice out this morning. It's sunny and good morning, Mom, and good morning, Jenny. And we are so happy to be on here with y'all today, as we are every day, and just spend a few minutes with y'all here on the When I Rise morning devotional.
Yeah. So when you get on here, if you haven't already, say hi to us and please like this video and share this video.
Like and share.
That way, some other people can hop on here too. They might need to hear what we talk about this morning as we are continuing our study on how to stop fear, worry, and insecurity. And
Mm-hmm.
this is something I think that a lot of people, uh,
Good morning, Asha. But it's sunny and warming up. It
yeah, we don't
takes
like
a
rain
bit.
either.
No, we don't like
Um,
rain.
but this is something that a lot of people deal with in some shape or fashion, either fear, worry, or insecurity, or all three. It's something that is very much a struggle in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people's lives in some way. And so we just want to jump into this today as we talk about uh, do we allow our fear to keep us from God's blessings?
Okay. I wasn't sure what you named it, but that's good.
Yep.
Do we allow our fear to keep us from God's blessings?
Yeah. So we'll
It's good.
excuse me. So we'll
I'm sure it'll be
pray.
great. All right.
And then we will jump into, we are going to be in Philippians chapter 4. So we'll pray and then we'll
I
jump
bet
into
y'all will know
Philippians
the
chapter
verse.
4.
Y'all
So,
could probably read it to me if we was seeing y'all's faces. Y'all know it by heart. Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the sunshine today. Thank you for all of our blessings in our lives. Just thank you for the time we have to come here each morning here on Facebook and spend just a few minutes here with these wonderful people here on Relate. Just encourage us today in your word and let it be encouragement to us and help us to apply what we hear to our life. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
amen.
Philippians 4. I didn't realize it was 12 and
12 and
13, but
13.
12 and 13. Okay, so 12, verse 12 says, I have experienced times of need and times of abundance. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of contentment. This reminds me of the new song Gyra
Mm-hmm.
every time. And in verse, let's see, whether I go satisfied or hungry, have plenty or nothing. And then in 13, it says, I am able to do all things through the one who strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength.
Yep. And so that's what the passage reminds us today, that we can do all things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really talk about and really look at the context of what is being said, he's talking about contentment.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, he says that whether I'm in times of need or times of abundance,
Mm-hmm.
uh, whether I'm satisfied or I'm hungry,
Mm-hmm.
if I have plenty or if I have nothing, I have learned to have. He says, in any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of contentment,
Happy no matter the
and
circumstance.
the secret to the contentment is that we are able to do all things through Christ who strengthens us, and it's that thing that it's if it's a good time or if it's a bad time, I can get through this because it is Him who gives me strength.
Mhm.
If it's time where everything's just going right and everything's just clicking and we are just moving right along, hey, I can get through that because God is with me and He's the one that gives me strength. If it's a
Right.
time when nothing that I try seems to work and nothing uh, I look to fits together, it doesn't work, everything's just falling apart, I can get through those moments as well because it's God who gives me the strength,
Mhm.
and it's that's the secret to being content. Is relying on God to give you the strength. And this is something that's so hard for us to understand in
Mhm.
this day and age, especially, is how to be content.
Mhm.
Everything, and the devotion talks about this, everything that we look at in life, whether it's our phones, our tablets, our TVs, everything that we have now is outdated.
Mine's not. My
That's true.
my phone isn't outdated,
But it will be.
but it's not now. But it will be because
But it
they
will
always
be.
are coming out with a new phone.
Our TVs are all outdated.
Oh yeah,
Our computers are all outdated. Everything that we have
our
is
cars.
outdated. Yet
Mhm.
they're constantly bringing something new, and then they promote it in such a way to make us want that so bad that we are
Mhm.
never satisfied with what we have. We are
Right.
never content. And I was talking to one of the guys I work with yesterday, talking about my phone, how my phone doesn't ring, like it does not make sound. There's dirt got in the little button that pushes it over to
It
turn it.
doesn't ring anymore.
No, I can't turn it off silent mode because
Oh,
you.
I thought that just meant you couldn't hear,
No, it can't. So like I push this little button and I turn it on the ringer and I let go of the button and it
and
goes
it goes
right back
right
to
back,
silent mode.
so it doesn't
And
have
so
a
it,
ring.
it doesn't ring. So if I don't have my phone on me or my watch on, which is I don't know, my phone is ringing. And he's like, well, why don't you just go buy a new one? I was like, well, it still works. I can still make calls. I still do whatever I need to do. And most of the time, my phone's with me, my watch is on, so I know when my phone is ringing. But it's just little things. Like there was a time in my life when I probably been like, hey, my phone doesn't ring anymore.
I'm gonna
Uh,
go buy a new phone
my phone doesn't charge. Like I can't stick anything in the port
because it has dirt in it.
because it has dirt in, it, and I clean it, and it works for like 2 days, and then it goes out. And there have been a time that I'm like, hey, let's just go get a new phone because it doesn't charge. Because that's a legitimate reason. Like if it doesn't charge, then it doesn't work. But now I just have a charger that I lay it on,
Mhm.
and it charges it that way.
Mhm.
Because that was a whole lot cheaper than buying a brand new phone. And not that that's the whole thing of the thing, but in today's society, it's so hard. And this is a lesson that we've learned to be content with what we have, um, because it still works. And it may be cracked a little bit, and it may have some scratches, and it may have some things, but it still works. The
Mine
TV,
didn't.
yeah,
My
hers
phone stopped
hers was a
working, so I
completely
had to
different
have
story.
another phone.
But like the TV that we have in our living room, it's old.
It's 10 years old at least.
Yeah,
Probably older because we didn't buy it when it first came out.
yeah. And so like we have all year talked
Mhm.
about getting a new TV, but have not because it still works. And even though there's some things that's probably we could probably get a better TV and all this kind of stuff, it still works. It does its job, and it's a good TV. So
Why waste the money to go
and
buy
so,
something that we already have?
um, but this is where we are in life. Is where are we going to be content with where we are?
Mhm.
Um, are we content with our jobs? Are we content with to roll over into another podcast? Are we content in our relationships? And so many times, whether it's good things or bad things in our jobs or in our relationships, uh, sometimes we face rough seasons or tough seasons that cause us want to leave or to give up. But if we are can learn to be content by learning that it's God that gives us strength for this purpose to get through this hard season, this hard time, then we can learn to be more content in these seasons. And this is where we are. And as they are talking about here, being, are we allowing our fear to stop us from God's blessings? Sometimes we are on the fear of missing out, the fear of um, not being able to do something right, and so we 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 get discontent with where God has us
Mhm.
and we walk away from it.
Mhm.
And like if we're reading, I know we keep jumping back and forth in Numbers talking about the children of Israel when they sent the spies over into the promised land to spy it out. And this is something that they knew that God had given them. God
Mhm.
had promised them this land, and God had proven himself time and time again that he was able to provide for them, that he was able to protect them, that he was able to deliver them, that God was able to do great and mighty things because they have seen it. It's not like God was just calling a group of strangers to go and take this land. No, he had already, as we talked back in days past, he's already split the Red Sea. He's already provided for them when they were hungry, when they was thirsty. He provided heat during the night and shelter during the day as they were wandering in the wilderness. God has moved mightily
Mhm.
this whole time that they've been in the wilderness, and now they're at the edge of the promised land, and all they have to do is believe that God will do what He said He can do,
Mhm.
and that they can do what He said they can do because it's Him that gives us strength, and yet they are afraid
Mhm.
and they are paralyzed by this fear. And because of their fear, they are not content with what God has them, where God has them, and what God is calling them to do.
Mhm.
Um, because they are looking at this as a very hard time, and it was going to be a challenge. It wasn't like it was going to be easy. Yes, as we most of us know, like the walls of Jericho were strong and big, and that was the first place that they attacked eventually. And in an unconventional way, they went and they had a victory there. But they were looking at the walls, and this is something that we cannot get through. This is something we cannot get past. They were looking at who was living in the land, and they were strong and mighty and giants. It doesn't come out and say it in some of the scriptures that we have read in this devotion. But when it talks about some of these descendants, they're talking about giants, and that's why they're out there. They are, I mean, like we hear about David and Goliath, David fighting this giant. They're talking about real giants.
Like how tall? Like giant. When I think of a giant, I think of 10 feet, 11 feet, 12 feet tall.
Yeah,
So why don't those people exist now? Like
they
giants
do.
was then? Like, is there giants now?
I don't know. Maybe.
Sorry.
Um, but yeah, you're talking about 9, 10, 11 feet
I'd
tall
be scared
people,
of them too.
big people that are big and strong, and these are the real obstacles that they had to face. But look at the blessings that they would gain by occupying this land.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it would look like for a land to be flowing with milk and honey. Like,
I try to picture it. Like I would be wanting to sit there and just drink it.
I kind of think like Willy Wonka, maybe a
True.
little bit like at the chocolate river, but it's a
But it's a
river of
milk,
yeah milk,
milk,
and then you got
sweet
all these
milk.
honey drops. I don't know. I don't know what it would look like, but I can only imagine like what that would mean. Uh, I don't know how
That's
flowy
interesting.
honey
I think
is,
of a
but
waterfall with
yeah,
milk instead of
and so
water.
now that's probably silly, but I mean, this is kind of what I think about.
Yes.
It's a great land, and it's a land that is vibrant and uh, it's abundant and it's great blessings. They're talking about one cluster of grapes they had to carry on a pole. I mean, could you imagine the size of these grapes? I mean,
Like, are they like this big? Like a normal grape is like this. But yeah, I picture it in my mind like it's like a fairy tale,
yeah.
like of a land. Like, oh
And so
gosh, like
as we hear these stories, we have to think that the opposition then would have to be pretty fierce for them not to go into that place. And so what we have got to understand then is that so they're looking at these two situations. They're looking at the blessings and they're looking at the obstacles. And their reasoning here that they can't do this is because they are trusting in themselves for their strength. That's what we talked about was it yesterday,
mm-hmm,
that we are just untrained slaves.
mm-hmm,
That's what they were. That's what they saw themselves as. That's what 10 of the spies that went in saw themselves as untrained spies. And we'll talk more about this tomorrow. But in Numbers chapter 13 verse 30, Caleb, he got up and he said, "Let's go up and occupy it, for we are well able to conquer it." Um, and he knew that God was going to be on their side.
Mhm.
He knew that they would be able to do this because God was going to be with them, and so they gave into their fear.
Mhm.
They gave into their fear, and uh, walked away from the blessings of God.
Mhm.
And how
That's
often
sad.
do we do that?
We do it a lot.
And the punishment because of this was that they had to spend 40 years. They spent the next 40 years wandering around in the desert, in the wilderness. In fact, the punishment was that nobody that was alive at that time, except for Joshua and Caleb, was going to enter into the promised land.
Yep.
Nobody, not one person who was alive at this time, besides Joshua and Caleb, entered into the promised land. And that was the punishment because they did not believe that God could do what he said he could do, and that God was their strength. And they gave into the fear. And so not only did they miss out on the blessing, but they were never allowed to enter into it in their whole life. And how many times in our life are we paralyzed by fear
Mhm.
to stop our blessing?
Mhm. Don't live in that fear. Like it's just something we have to tell ourselves. What are we going to miss out on if we do allow our fear to take over?
Yeah. And so I know we have been like telling like some really personal not personal, but some insight into like some of our struggles and our fears, especially when it comes to planting the church. You know, Christy was talking about, like this isn't the first time we try to plant a church,
Right.
and we've planted a church before, and not that things just went horribly wrong, but when it come time for us to plant this church, we spent probably a good year and a half arguing with God about whether or not this is what he wanted us to do. And we was looking for other options because we really honestly truly did not want to plant a church because we knew the obstacles that would face. We knew about our own insecurities and some of the things that I struggle with in my life that's probably not best suited for someone who's trying to do what we are doing. Um, and we look at this kind of stuff and look at in our own strength, hey, we're not able to do this, and it's been a scary process. And one of the scariest things for me to ever have to do was to go through the assessment process because I don't have that much self-confidence in myself.
Mhm.
And I've shared this before, that like I didn't know if I'd be able to handle a group of people telling me, no, this isn't what you're supposed to do. Like I didn't know and so I always shied away from that. And yet, when we made the decision that we was going to plant a church this year,
Last year.
last year, gosh, it's already been a year. When we made that decision to plant the church, um, it's just been all placed in God's hand. And the way that He's moved, it really hasn't given us time to doubt because we was, we made I filled out a little survey online, and the next day I was on a Zoom call with the director of digital church planning for Stadia Church Planning, and a month later we was going through the assessment process, and that was a whirlwind of a month. And but we was not relying on our own strengths, because in our own strengths, we can't do this.
I was scared to death.
Yeah.
I was scared to death because I didn't feel like I could talk to these people. These people know what they're doing. And it was a fear that I had when they would want to do us like a one on one talk with us. Like it was such a fear, like, oh, what if I say something wrong? What if I say something like that's not right? Like, and it was just a fear that I had to work through in that moment. And in the end, it came out well.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have to even while we have the fear, we still have to do the things. We can't just sit back and let our fear rule that moment.
Yeah.
Because if I hadn't wanted to get on there and do what we had done, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah, and looking at the like, and we talked about that. Looking at their situation, it wasn't that wasn't frightening. It wasn't like it wouldn't have been challenging. It's just, where are we going to put our faith and where are we going to put our trust? And we can
Mm-hmm.
fast forward to David and Goliath, and the whole Israel army was cowering. Every time Goliath would come out, they would run and they would hide because they were looking at their own strength compared to his. And David, a little shepherd boy, comes up and he's like, "Listen, I don't know why you guys are so afraid because it's not our strength that's going to win this battle, anyways. It's God who is on our side." And he went out and faced this giant all alone with no armor or anything, nothing but a sling and some stones. And God gave him the victory because he was going out there not in his own strength, but in the strength of God. And so
Mhm.
when we come upon these situations where it's so hard and we are looking at life's obstacles and we see that things are not easy, it's not hard, it's a rough time, maybe financially it's a rough time, or maybe in your home it's a rough time, or on
Mhm.
the job it's a rough time, with your kids it's rough, or with your spouse it's rough. In those moments we can choose to be content in those times and rely on the strength of God, or we can allow our fear to paralyze us from moving forward. And if we're not moving forward, then we end up moving backwards.
Mhm.
And we can, and like the children of Israel did here in this point in time, they missed out on
Mhm.
God's blessing altogether.
Right.
And so we don't need to allow. And I know this is a whole lot easier said than done.
Oh
Everything,
yeah.
everything is so a lot easier said than done.
Mhm.
But how often do we allow our fear to paralyze us
Mhm.
from getting God's blessings? And how often, if we can just rely on Him and trust in Him, that He will give us, knowing that He will give us the victory?
Mhm. It's so true. It's such a good lesson for all of us, and it's something we have learned in our life. We can't let our fears hold us back, and so often people do, and it's sad to see what people miss out on in their life.
Hmm.
We could miss out on so much, but think about the amazing things that God has planned for your life if you would just step out of those fears. Uh, what is the prayer hands for on here? Maybe Jenny meant to put the shouting one instead. Teresa says our kids are watching us, and they have to see us being content if we want them to truly trust God. That's true, and
Oh,
our kids need to see us learning to step out of our fears, because I think as kids, they have fears already. And if they see mom and dad fearing things and not stepping out and doing what the Lord has called us to do, when they're older, they're going to do the same thing.
yep.
If mom and dad ain't going to do it, then I'm not going to do it either. And that's true, Teresa. Our kids see everything we do as adults, and they'll, what we do, they'll reflect us when they're older. So we have to learn to just let the Lord be our strength, like Christopher said. We have to trust Him that what He's calling us to do in those moments, just do it, and just don't pay any attention to the fears. And you'll miss out on so many good things in your life. We all have a purpose. How can we ever fulfill our purpose fully if we won't trust in Him to get us there?
Yeah. So,
Good lesson.
yeah, thank you guys for joining with us this morning. If you haven't already, please like and share this video. And hopefully, it has been an encouragement to you this morning. Remember, whatever we go through, life is full of ups and downs.
Right.
It's full of fortified cities and giants that we encounter in our lives. And we have a choice that we can all be paralyzed by the fear, or we can choose to trust in God who gives us the strength that we are able to do all things.
Hmm.
And that choice is up to you. So, what are
Oh,
you going to
yes.
choose this morning?
It's
So,
all a choice. As we've said so many times lately, everything is a choice.
yep.
So, yes, what are you going to choose?
And
Jason's
so,
making lots of
I
faces, and I'm
know.
sure that those of y'all that are watching are probably getting a good laugh out of this kid. He's just a clown, as Wally is. He's just a clown, and I know y'all love to see him on here though. He's part of us, so
Yep.
that's why we don't really make him go away.
And so, we're going to pray, and then we will let you guys get back to your day. God, we just love you. We thank you so much just for who you are, all that you do for us. And God, we just thank you that you have given us the strength that we are able to overcome any obstacles that is set in our way. And God, I pray that you would help us in these moments to put our trust in you and our faith in you, that you will get us through and that you will give us the strength. Help us not to try to rely on our own strength, but know that we can overcome our fear by relying on you. And God, we just pray that you would just help us get through any of these hard moments that we encounter in life, God. And if there are those who are in these moments now, they are up against a wall or they are facing a giant in life, God, help them to rely on you. Give them the strength that only you can give to get through this situation. God, we love you. We thank you for it. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. We had a fun time yesterday on the Relate Hangout on
Yes.
Zoom, and we plan to do that again. Maybe we could do it once a month.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, we'll try to do that once a month, at least once a month, and we will get the next date scheduled. We'll try to schedule a little earlier so we can start
Get more
talking about
people,
it a little
yeah,
bit more.
invited. It
And
was
so,
good. We enjoyed it, and join us again tomorrow here at 8:30. And we hope y'all have a great day. Tell them
yep.
bye, Jason. Say bye.
See you later.
See you. Bye.